brightly coloured, fantastic looking 50-car grid is green flag for the 73rd time here at the Mobil 1. 12 Hours of Sebring.
It's like Daytona all over again. Penske versus Penske.
But it's Felipe Nasr who drives home the victory.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matt Yocum. Welcome to another edition of the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. Big show coming up. Felipe Nasr on fire. Rolex 24 backs it up with a Sebring 12-hour victory. He'll be stopping by, as well as Jeffrey Stillwell, the biggest Sebring fan that there is. And our pal Jonathan Grace will stop by to talk post-Sebring and the headline Steelers and who to look out for the rest of the 2025 season. But the guy who won the weekend, the guy who has won the year, Felipe Nasr from his home down in Brazil. Felipe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys and coming out fresh from the win at Sebring. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about it.
Well, when you look at that weekend and the year that you've had, so many people will say when they have milestone type parts of their career, I wish that they would give you a script so that you could enjoy each day in the buildup to soak it in and soak up that career type day. When you look at the Rolex, no one had ever won back-to-back endurance races in the modern GTP era. And it was like you and your teammates picked up right where you left off at Daytona with the Rolex win, taking another crown jewel event at Sebring. So when you think back to that day in a Groundhog Day type moment, what was the one image that stands out to you about your win at Sebring?
It's pretty incredible to be able to, just live in the moment and enjoying these two huge wins, not only for myself, but for Porsche Penske Motorsport. It's been an incredible start of the year. We saw at Daytona how things played out. The race being decided in the last 30 minutes. Only IMSA can produce that. And I was again there to be able to fight for victory. So doing that back-to-back victory was something incredible. Something I won't ever forget. And then the most difficult part, shifting the focus to Sebring, was just to let everything behind that happened in Daytona and just say, okay, we closed this cycle. We won as a team, but now we have a new race. We have a new approach to take. And I feel that mindset was taken over by all the drivers, the team, and we just faced Sebring as a new event. It was just like another race for us. Which for me, as an athlete, when you're trying to perform at the highest level, it's that switch from one event to the other that makes the difference. We cannot be attached to what happened before or what's going to happen next. We just have to be there to give everything again, and just to act as it's a new weekend. And that's exactly how we did it. From practice to qualifying to the race. It was just beautiful to see how the team performed, both in the 7 car and the 6. There's very rare moments in motorsports nowadays that you can really see those kinds of performance, and that's exactly what happened at Sebring. It went so smooth, but at the same time, so close to perfection. All the pit stops, all the strategy calls, all the on track, the car behavior, the performance, the durability, and as you said, the trio, this group of people, we worked phenomenal. And having both Nick and Loris in the car, they drove an absolutely amazing race in Sebring, and it was fun to watch them drive too. When I was out of the car, I was like, wow, those guys are really delivering. And then, okay, it's my turn now. I wanna, it was just that type of, that level of trust and performance, and everybody in the same synchronization of things that made that win possible. So I'm just over the moon looking back now and being able to be home, and just looking back, it was just incredible.
Being home and now taking a little bit of a break and you can go back and start to replay in your mind Sebring, replaying your mind Daytona, and all the key moments, is that where you go, wow, this really is something special? And you touched on the execution, and that's one of the hardest things that people don't realize. When you get in the zone as a team and you're reeling off a great string of momentum, performance, the runs, the trophies, that is something special, because once you get on that momentum train, you know that there's a start and an end point, and you try to keep delaying the end point because the competition has the bullseye on you. And does it make it even that much more special when you're looking at just the execution is A1?
In this sport, you can never win alone. And, it wouldn't have meant nothing if I was in the zone myself, but my teammates or the team was not synchronized. So everybody has to be speaking the same language. And I just felt everyone just down to earth, very, very calm, and just being very focused on their jobs. Every time the car was on track or in the stops or on the refueling or changing tires, and we got out of the car, we had enough time to speak to our teammates, to the team, and give them feedback. How is the car behaving? What do we need to do? The track is changing grip here or there. So delivering at this level, it takes the whole team, and it takes the whole commitment from everybody. And as you said, this in GTP class, the competition is so high. You look back at all the races, even at Sebring, there were times, several cars had the chance to be in the lead as well and dictate that race. But the teams who do the least mistakes are the ones who always will be fighting for victory. And I felt like we executed better than everybody else.
Well, certainly you guys have been stellar on the racetrack, but I don't think anybody is more prolific in victory lane. When you were celebrating your fifth Penske win, your champagne technique, they should make a template of this for all the young drivers. This is the master at Sebring. So do you have a technique? Do you have a certain way you shake the bottle? Do you aim? Because you were pretty incredible.
Well, thanks, Matt. I never really thought about it. But as soon as we raised our trophies and it was champagne time, I looked to my left and I saw the whole team just cheering. I said, I got to give those guys a moment. So I came over and, just really aim for the guys. And, it's in the moment. It's just everybody, I could see everybody having a good time and enjoying it and having a good time, having a good laugh. And I certainly made some of the guys a little spray in their eyes. So I'm not too sure if, it was cool. It was cool. I wish, those moments stay in my head fresh. And like I said, I have so much respect for those guys because I know how much they work hard in the background, prepping the cars and dedicating their times, dedicating their job to make the best possible result on the track. We are there to drive, but for sure, what they do behind the scenes is so incredible, and they deserve that credit too.
So those guys were stellar over the wall. The guys on top of the box, I mean, they had a great race strategy laid out. When you go back to Daytona, there were so many storylines throughout that 24 hours, but the one image that everybody keeps playing back on social media, and when the conversation comes up, it was the pass that you made to take the lead. Incredible move. When you look back on that, is that going to be one of those top 5 moments that, that was why you're a driver? The sight, the sound, the smell of being in the car, but that image and that thought process of going down and taking the lead like that?
For sure. And it's something I have when I look back to Daytona and I see the moment that move happened. It was just the way I was reading the traffic, and I knew the time was running because the Acura was coming pretty fast. He was already running third and catching both of us in the PPM cars. And at the same time, we didn't want to lose any time between a teammate fight, right? So that decision came in split seconds. When I saw the traffic coming along and all the multi-class racing happening, I said, okay, this is it. I've got to make a decision. I have to go for it. Otherwise, who knows if I have another opportunity coming up. And I set myself pretty well, got the draft into the 6, and I just played a little bit of a move, pretending I was going to come back to the right. And then at very last minute, I came back to the left on the inside and outbraked him going into the bus stop at Daytona. And that was it. That really was the moment of the race that everything changed. And from that moment on, I said, okay, that's it. I just got to keep focused forward, hitting my marks, and take the car to the finish. So it's pretty incredible because as a driver, you try to use all your experience and technique, and when you put all those together, a lot of incredible things can happen. And for sure, it's one of those moments I won't ever forget. Having done it back to back again was another special feeling. It's hard to describe because often I get that question. So which one was more special, 2024 or 2025? I say they are very special in their ways because there were different races, different scenarios played out in the end. But for sure, as a racer being behind the wheel, 2025 was very special, having to make that decision, making the pass to the lead and taking another victory.
Quite often we have to take a step back to take a leap forward. And I remember my conversation with Timmy King when you were at Action Express and you'd left to go over to be a part of the developmental team at Porsche Penske, and yet you were going to run some GT races. And Timmy said, people do not under any idea, they're going to underestimate how this is going to improve him as a driver and how this will
absolutely
make him so much more well-balanced because now he's got comers and goers. So he has to be even more aware in a split second of his surroundings, and it's going to make him more patient, but he's going to understand timing even more, which will help him when he's in the GTP car. And do you feel like that's come to fruition?
Absolutely. Team is a good friend still, we see each other every now and then. He texted me the other day to congratulate on the Sebring win. But I'm with you. I'm with the same mentality that he put the words there about having the experience of the GT cars. For me, first of all, was getting out of my comfort zone. It's something I wasn't familiar with, driving GT cars, because most of my background has been single seaters and prototypes, sports car racing. So having switched to GTs for 1 year, I think it created more awareness in the race when I'm dealing with traffic and knowing where the car has its limits and where the driver has its limits. Like when you have a late lunge coming from a GTP car or so, you kind of have those references in your mind. And I think I took that over to GTP as well. It's for sure is an additional experience that I have for myself. And the timing in our sport is everything. And funny enough, I met Nick Tandy in the airport the other day as we were flying out of Sebring. And he's like, man, there's so many good drivers, but, being good doesn't mean just being fast or it's about having that full read during a race, how you're looking after the tires, how you're looking after the traffic, how you're timing your next overtake. And I see often drivers are good, but they don't have this complete package of making those split-second decisions. And I can only say this comes with time and experience, right? And for sure today, I'm not afraid to say, I'm performing for sure at one of my best in my career, and having this, having this experience behind me, having this knowledge about GT cars and GTP cars, and of course having a great team behind me. I can feel the trust they have on me, and I have the trust on them. I was able to start and finish both Daytona and Sebring. I know that as a driver means a lot. There's a lot of responsibility in your shoulders. but I'm ready. I cannot wait for the next challenge. I've been enjoying a lot my sports cars career since I switched to it back in 2018 and until now. So yeah, the year has started incredible, and now I'm looking forward to the sprint races coming along the calendar, and Le Mans. Le Mans is our next goal.
And didn't you say something to Nick like, look, I've helped you achieve your dream of now winning all the 24s. Can we win Le Mans? Because that's missing from my resume.
I did indeed tell Nick. I said, hey, Nick, you've got it all now, man. You got to help me on one task. We need Le Mans. And I know Nick is super professional. We are getting the chance to work together this year closely as teammates. And again, I have a lot of respect for Nick. He's a guy who has driven and won everything he's been involved. He's still super quick inside the sports cars, inside the Porsche 963. And I think we had the chemistry going into this year and knowing what we need in the car, how we pass on the feedback to the engineers and to the mechanics, and it's just been great. And he's the guy who carries the experience as well. So I'm sure I have a great guy next to me heading to Le Mans that can really help me extract 100% of our chances there. And again, like I said, it's a cycle that we just completed now, winning Daytona, winning Sebring, and each race we should approach as a new one.
So with the shuffle of drivers, and you mentioned Nick coming over from the sister car at the 6, how has he made you a better driver? Is there one component that where you feel like his personality, his experience, just the great guy he is, great family man, everything that comes together, is there something that he has helped you improve on?
For sure. Nick and I, the same way we are very different, we're very similar in some ways, because we both have our commitments off the track. He has his own duties, his family duties, or stuff he works on. So, we try to touch base every now and then, but when it comes to the track and to performing and delivering to the team, I feel like we are always on the same page. We have very similar feelings behind the wheel and needs behind the wheel. And he's a guy that, to me, what I could learn from him this year, it's no matter where the car is, if we're running 4th or 5th, or doesn't matter where we are in the race, he's always going to give everything he has. And that's the great part. I would say his experience is something that really has taken us to another level. And of course, us together have been a very strong, team for now. And I'm sure the sprint races, we want to continue performing. But Nick, like I said, it's all around very experienced guy. He knows what the car needs. He has a really great feel behind the wheel. If it's talking about the tire or aero or, the balance we need to take home for the race. And it's very much in line to the needs I feel I need. So, there wasn't much that we had to compromise between us. So, hopefully there's much more we will celebrate in the upcoming races.
When you look at athletes, and it doesn't matter the sport or the discipline, I remember Kobe Bryant, the NBA Hall of Famer, and he'd missed a shot and they lost and their season was over. They missed winning the championship. And he was sitting on the bench. And then when he finally got off the bench, someone asked him, are you all right? Whatever. He goes, no. He goes, I was just envisioning in my mind exactly what I did wrong so that I won't do it again. And so there's all these learning, processes that you go through. And you look at your career, and you mentioned you started out in karts when you're 7, single-seater, all the way up to F1. And you had the most impressive debut by a Brazilian in F1, finishing 5th in the Sauber. But with that experience, and when you pivoted from F1 to sports cars, how did that make you better as a person, as an athlete? That experience, and then making the decision of, look, I need to, and they were to a different direction.
That's a pretty good question. And honestly, I had all my eyes and the desire to become a Formula One world champion. And I was on my path till we was cut short, right? When I did 2 seasons for Sauber in F1, as you said, had the best debut of a Brazilian driver, finishing 5th in Australia in my first ever Grand Prix. But there are certain things we don't control. You know, and we know in the world of F1, there was so much behind the scenes that I could only deliver much, as much as the driver could do. But it was out of my hands. Where would that take me to the next step, right? And there's only very few opportunities to be driving for top teams. So when it all came, and the decision was made that I wasn't going to be there anymore, I said, okay, what do I want now? Right? It's hard after 2 years, you're fighting for, a few points here and there. You kind of lose that, not lose, but it's funny to say that. But as a driver, I needed that fire back to be fighting for victories, for championships, for podiums, because like I said, the chances are so limited in F1 when you're driving for smaller privateer teams, that those results, they start to go and drift away in the distance, right? So then I said, well, I know I have tried sports car racing back when I just won the British F3 championship. So I was probably 18, 19 at the time. I had the invitation to go and drive the 24 Hours of Daytona for the first time. And that really shook me somehow. And I knew there was something in the back of my mind. I said, okay, I wanna make the switch to sports car racing, but I want to be the best in the sport. And I want to make sure, I can learn as quickly as I can, and I'll be fighting for championships and victories right away. And that's exactly what happened. I visualize all that, and I practice for that, and I train for that. And I knew back then that in a couple of years, there was already this conversation that GTP will be coming into play. You had big manufacturers, big teams coming into play as well in the sport. So I wanted to be sure I was going to be in the top of the list of the drivers that will deserve a seat with a proper manufacturer in a proper team. And it happened. It happened. And looking back, I was prepared for that. I was really in line for all those things happening in my life. All the decisions I took was towards driving for a top team. And then it came the invitation, the first talks with Porsche and Penske, to make the switch to PPM project and taking over the project, developing the 963, taking the car to test days, talking to the engineers. And to me, it was like, wow, this is an incredible opportunity for a driver to be involved from day one in such a project. And as the days went on, I was like, this is the biggest thing I ever took on, because not even in Formula One, I worked with the level of professionalism, the level of quality, structure, and representing two of the biggest brands in motorsport. So to me, that was the next level, and I was ready to deliver into that next level. For sure, we had our challenges along the way. In 2022 and 2023, taking the car to race the first year with all the reliability issues. But I was there. I knew that could happen too, right? And now we are coming to the point that all that hard work we've been putting on, we're getting the results that were desired and that I, visualize and practice and train for that. So as a driver, I know how much I've been putting on the line to be at this stage of my career. So I'm really, really pleased to be here now, and enjoying one of the best moments in my career, I have to say, with no regrets whatsoever had happened in the past. But I feel that all had prepared me for a better professional, a better person, a better leadership, And with all, it's a lot of transitions. If you look back, there's a lot of differences between single seater and endurance racing. And I just love how the endurance racing has really surprised me in a good way, in so many aspects. And I'm really able to, like I said, I'm living in the moment, and I'm enjoying every second of it. And I'm sure there's more to come.
Well, when you look at the work ethic, you look at the mental approach, you look at the decision-making process of, okay, this isn't working for me, and I'm starting to lose my fire. And that's what originally gave me the opportunity because of my talent and everything, the total package. And then you go back to Watkins Glen, and when I interviewed you in Victory Lane, and I said, what type of statement does this send to the competition? And you said that I'm back. And I think hearing that, it allows you inside a little bit to understand that indeed there's so much that goes into it, and especially the mental approach and being happy and passionate and loving what you're doing. And then when you make a statement like that, I think that sends the message in a really strong way that, man, I'm at the top of my game again. And it's like Pac-Man. You're just looking for things to mow down and chase down more trophies.
Exactly. And we got to respect that process. We often try to rush that process, and it's also the combination of factors, behind a great team, because it wouldn't mean nothing if I'm performing at my best, but I don't have my teammates or my team, performing at their best too. So I keep saying that phrase, but good things, they do take time. So it takes every day the attitude of winning, the commitment, the level of interest you have in your sport or making everything better, because it's not only the race car when it's at the track. We have to think as well, when I'm inside the cockpit, what do I need inside the cockpit to make me feel, that I'm going to be better, I'll be performing better, or how is that communication can be better between myself and the team, or the way around, or how should I approach my teammates if they didn't have a good day? How can I make their day 1% better, or how can I make my mechanic be 1% better on the things he do? I already know he's pretty good, but heck, he can deliver that 1% more. And that's really like I said, when you have the experience and the commitment to win, and you put those things together, you can experience incredible things. Doesn't matter where you are in your profession, but when you put those two together and you give them time, and it's consistency as well. And like I said, we ain't gonna stop here. I want a lot more in the sport. You mentioned a fact. It's already my 5th win for Porsche Penske. I remember the first day I said to Roger, I said, I want to win a race for your organization. And here we are. We're already celebrating a couple of them. And to see the smiles on everyone's face, that gives me the drive. And I know I'm on the right path.
I always love the backstories of how people get together. And you mentioned about the thought process. You were winning trophies at Action Express, and then the GTP era was going to come back. And so, not that it's like covert or anything, but I've had several, drivers tell me stories about how they would drive an hour from their home and have another team person drive an hour from their shop, and they would meet in this small little town where they wouldn't think anybody would recognize them. And they would start to have that conversation process. So what was it like for you? Did you reach out to Team Penske, or did they, send word through their grapevine in racing? People have no idea how massive the grapevine is. Hey, can you go ahead and let them? So what was the story?
It was a pretty interesting one. So I was driving for Action Express, and we were, let's say, mid-season. I just finished a race in Watkins Glen. And at that point, I think we just took the lead of the championship. And I remember before that year has started, I did send an email to Roger saying that I saw the news. I congratulated him about the news on Porsche Penske getting together for the LMDH car, building the 963. And I sent him an email before the season starts saying, one day I want to drive for your organization. If there is ever a possibility or an opportunity, please let me know. And he just replied very simple, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep you posted. That's it. And I never heard anything again. So I came to this race at Watkins Glen. We just took over the lead of the championship. And then I received that one email saying, now is the time. We want to talk to you about joining our team for 2022 and beyond, right? So there I go. I'm in New York. I'm like, okay. And we were going to have another race in Watkins because I think it was a 2 event that we had that year in 2021. We had 2 events in Watkins Glen. And I'm like, okay, I need to find a way that nobody will ever, find that out. So I started thinking real quick, but I said, okay, I'm just going to get to the airport and I'll try to do everything in one day. And that's exactly what I did. So I flew to Charlotte. I had a driver pick me up and they took me to a secret spot, not at Team Penske, but one of Cindric's secret spot that I then met with Roger, met with the principals from Porsche Motorsports, and we all sat in this table. But the funny enough was when I was walking towards the meeting, I was just about to go to the meeting, and I was sat somewhere like near a plaza waiting for some food, and they said the meeting was going to be delayed a few minutes. And I had my backpack, and I didn't check, since I got out of the plane, I didn't check the climate outside. I didn't know it was such a warm day. It was really hot. And I was walking down the street to the secret meeting, and I didn't realize it was such a hot day. So in 5 minutes, I started sweating like crazy. I'm like, how am I going to show up in a meeting like that? That was a bad move. And then, funny enough, comes this car along the route and stops next to me, the window down, and I look, it's Roger. I said, you the driver? What are you doing outside? Come in, and I'm like, I say, Roger, you can see I'm all, I was sweating like crazy. But anyway, got in the car, we go to the meeting, and, they started talking about the plans and how Porsche and Penske were getting together again, the idea of having this global project coming along. And they started making me a lot of questions. And, the question that struck me the most was probably when they asked me, so why do you want to join? Why do you want to drive for Porsche? Why do you want to drive for Penske? I said, well, it's very simple. You guys have won everything in history, and I want to be part of it. I know I can deliver and I can add more to the history of the team. And that was it. That was to be the turning point where I said, this is huge. And, at the same time, I had a really good relationship with Action Express and Cadillac, and I knew they could also take me to the next level. But I just felt at the same time was something, was like a new challenge I was going to take on, and having that role of leading the project, leading a new team and putting that together was more challenging and more, I think that really shook me up and said, okay, this is what I need. And that's how it all happened. From there on, in a couple of weeks after, we started talking about contracts and talking about how we were going to interact. And yeah, I ended up winning the championship in 2021, sign off a great cycle I had with Action Express Racing and driving the 31 wheel and engineering car. And off I went to the new challenge with PPM.
So you mentioned about all this that's going on and all the business side of the sport that's on your plate. And then you've got the competition side. So you're trying to produce there. So when you go home to Brazil, is this your opportunity to recharge the batteries, break away a little bit, just to clear the mind? Because, Nick, like you mentioned, he's got Joe Tandy Racing. He's got Fast Felix, starting his karting career. You throw in Eva with all her dance stuff going. And then on top of that, he's a farmer. And then his cool hobby. So he's got a ton going on. And for you, when you go home, what are a couple of the activities that you like to utilize to just exhale and recharge?
Yeah. It's just as important as my preparation is also how you decompress after a race weekend. We have a lot of commitments when it comes to, work with the team or weekly engineering meetings we have, post sessions we have, and so on. So we have all this going on, but at the same time, I always try to have some hobbies or stuff that I like doing. So I've been dividing my time a little bit in Brasilia, which is my hometown, and a little bit in São Paulo, because this is where my girlfriend is, where she lives, right? So we love to spend time together, whether it's cooking or when we can go down to the beach. If it's a short trip down to the beach, if it's 3-4 days, if it's playing my guitar or if it's fishing. I love sport fishing, so whenever I can, I call up my friends or my buddies. We go drive a few hours from home and find a lake nearby, just to really not talk about racing, not talk about what's coming up next, but just to be the Felipe I know I can be, right? There's the professional guy, and then there's the guy that likes to be, how can I say, offline and just be, enjoying his time like everybody else, enjoying a good meal, if it's cooking or if it's a glass of red wine. What else? I think that's pretty much it. This is all the things I like. I love music, so you always see when I'm out of the car or not racing, I love to be listening to some music just to be, it's something that makes me happy and relax. And I think that's the balance between having those demands of the day-to-day life of a racing driver, but also knowing how to to look after your personal life and enjoying that too.
I don't think there's anything like being with your pals out on the water and fishing. And when you look at the bragging rights that go along with it, so what's the biggest fish you've ever caught?
So the biggest fish I ever caught, it was in the Amazon River. Probably the last year was when I had my personal record, which was a peacock bass, which was about 80 centimeters and just a little over 20 pounds. It's a pretty big fish for that species. And it's just the fight that puts on, and I love to be out in nature. I love to be having a good time with my friends. It has nothing to do with racing. It's completely the opposite. It's where there's no time for anything. I'm not rushing for anything. I'm not, I'm not boring or anything. If I do catch a fish, great. If I don't, that's a great day as well. So I think that really resets my mind and my body to the place I know I like to be. And it's just incredible. If you ever have the chance to go to the Amazon, I really recommend going there, because it's one of the most beautiful places I ever been. The scenery, the place, the animal life you see around you, and it's a good time all around.
Now, I'm not saying, you mentioned Julia, your girlfriend, and by the way, both of you gave me some great musical suggestions at Petit Le Mans last year.
She's good at music too. She has good taste on music.
Yep, she did. She pulled out some really good ones that she was spot on. But let me ask you this, not that you ever get in the doghouse at all, but if let's say you're in the doghouse and you're going to cook your best meal because you love to cook, and you're very proficient with the guitar, your music is spot on as well when you're pulling that out. So what song would you play for her, and what meal do you make? So that way you for sure know that you're out of the house.
Oh, that's a big question, but well, I would probably, I know what she likes. Her favorite dinner would be, first of all, we'll have to start with a bottle of red wine, because that's how chefs can start their thinking process on before cooking, right? And I'll probably have some pasta made with some tomato sauce, but I take the tomatoes, I slice them, some onions, garlic, some pesto sauce. I mix them all up. It could be a tagliatelle or a linguine. And then at the same time, I would cook a very nice piece of steak next to it, slice it down. So I would have the pasta and the steak served. I know Julia loves that, and I enjoy that a lot as well. And a song that comes along with that, probably Dreams from Fleetwood Mac. I think she will like that.
Now, can you play that on the guitar? I mean, how long have you been playing? Because
if I can play that
video that I've heard you play, I'm like, wow.
Oh, man.
I wish I would not.
Don't embarrass me, man.
Oh, I wish I would not. I played guitar in middle school, and I had a Gibson SG, and I was like, and then I stopped because racing, became an even much bigger thing, if that could even be the case.
Yeah, I'm sweating already. You make me more nervous than in the race car.
Well, what's your favorite song to play?
Yeah, the Dreams I could play. I have more of a taste of the older songs, like classic rock, soft rock, a little bit of soul music, some blues. But singing and playing at the same time is not my strength. I can tell you that. I usually put Julia to sing. I'll be just playing the chords and having that, flow going on, and she'll be trying to sing me out. But you're already making me nervous here.
Well, looking at that and listening to what you play is amazing. We should be the ones that are nervous because you're making us all look bad. I'll pull out, Somewhere in Time, the movie, maybe A Great Dinner, but when you top it like you do with the music and the total package, see, you make us all look bad, Felipe.
Well, I know music gives you a nice tempo of things, and it's something I enjoy doing. It's hard to keep practicing because we travel for so many days, and then we go from here to US. Here to US, we have a driving camp in Germany, or I have simulator days in Germany. To when I'm best in my play and with the guitar, it's when I have the time to keep on doing consistency, But yeah, I mean, I don't know if that changed your mind, if you still want to play or not.
I think I better just keep going with the podcast and just have music as a memory, Well,
Good.
When you look at the paddock, and I'm always amazed, and we've talked about it in the past, how many kids you see. And you must have a lot of kids.
Oh, it's incredible.
Ask you, because you think back to when you were 7 and you started running karts and the people that were your heroes. And now fast forward, you are the hero for so many young kids, and they're using you as a motivator to chase their dream in racing. What's the big advice that you try to tell them? Because everyone's lives are different. No one's path. There's not a template where you can say, just follow this format and you're going to be there. It's all about audibles at different parts of your life and trying to, take advantage of opportunity. So if you could give one piece of advice for so many young boys and girls who are starting to chase their dream in karts or what have you, what would it be?
He will be probably just be curious, just be involved, try to learn from the good and the bad. When I look back at my career, the early days in go-karting was never pretty straightforward. I had difficulties, for example, like driving in the rain. So instead of freaking out and saying I cannot drive in the rain, I said, okay, I can learn from it. Let's see where my weaknesses are, right? Is it something I'm doing different in my timing, or I'm not taking the correct lines, or am I rushing too much? So for kids, I would always recommend, like every opportunity, every chance, every opportunity you have to be doing something you like, you can always learn the good and the bad, and also looking around and seeing, if someone is performing better than you. Again, don't focus on the other, but focus rather in yourself. How can I be better? Did I commit everything I could for this event? Did I prepare myself for that? Preparation is key in this sport, in any sport or any profession you choose in your life. So am I more dedicated than the other person? And am I doing the things I need to be on top that can take me to the next level? Even if I say that, like today I have 32 years old and I'm still learning. I still know there's always some little areas that I can be better. The other day in the race, I tell you, I came into the pit stop and I ended up braking a little too deep on the box, and the car just moved a few centimeters too long. And I tell you, I was like, man, I cannot do that again. And that was in the middle in the race. So instead of being hard on myself, you just switch on the process of learning. I said, okay, I did that. Why did I do that? Can I correct that? Do I need to come back maybe 1 or 2% in the next stop and just slow down the car a little more settled, right? So I'm always learning. And it's how you pick those things early enough and start working on them, right? And that to me is the best advice I can give, in anything you pick in your life or you choose to do. Just keep practicing over and over. Don't be too hard on yourself neither, but know the learning process, and the good things take time. You just keep practicing them, and I know it will come to the time that it will be, close to perfect on the things you do.
It's certainly not a date night movie, but Bill Murray in the movie Groundhog Day. And it's a good life learning lesson in a way of how to enjoy the moments. But he lives the same day over and over and over again. If you had one race day that you could live over again and celebrate it and experience it like you were seeing it for the first time, do you have one of those in the old memory bank of Felipe days?
In the older days or
any day. If you had one day that you would love just to experience it over one more time.
Well, I'll give you 2 examples then. Probably, I would say this year, Daytona 2025, it's probably something that when I crossed that finish line, to me was something beyond I've have experienced, just because, everything that happened in the race and doing a back-to-back victory and having that split-second decision, making a move, all those things made it very special. But if I have to look back in my career, I'll probably be going back to my karting days. And I remember winning my first race in a very well-known championship in Brazil. Instead of racing just regional races, I think was my first national race that I did. And I won that. And I was like, it was beyond anything I ever imagined being possible, because you don't know until it's done. You always have that fear of taking to the next level and knowing, am I good enough? Am I capable enough of delivering that, right? But once you get there, you know it's possible, and you have that in your system, right? So to me, looking back, I'm looking probably back 25 years ago when I did that race in go-kart in my first national big race. It's not any different to the feeling I had at Daytona this time, because I know I could take to the next level. I knew what it takes to be in the next level. So, like I said, if you're always improving, you're always delivering, you're always practicing, if you're always visualizing yourself going to the top, this is what it takes to be a champion. No matter where you are, no matter what you do, it's really how you put yourself on top of everything. What are your priorities? And it's great to see that I still have the same feeling that when I had 7 years old doing that go-kart race. So it's incredible. Racing can really surpass any expectations, and this is the beauty of racing, and learning from the bad days too. This is something that we talk about success, but we also learn a lot more when we have our bad days, or we made a mistake, or we made, something that didn't go as planned. How you react to those, how you adapt to those as well. So it's a combination of things. But yeah, like I said, it's the experience, it's the knowledge, but the feeling. It's great to be having the opportunity and having that same feeling I had, from 25 years back.
You mentioned those expectations, so it sounds like when you look at your life and your body of work in auto racing, that those dreams, when you started at 7 and when you were 10 or 11 and you won that big race you were just talking about, that those dreams have, when you sit there, they've got them on the front burner and you're hoping that that's going to be your future. But it sounds like reality so far surpassed any dreams that you had as a little kid starting out in karts, all that you've been able to experience, all that you've been able to win.
For sure, Matt. When I look back at my career, being born in Brazil, just like any other kid, just going to school and, have your day-to-day tasks until I tried a go-kart for the first time when I was 6 to 7 years old, and then taking on my first go-kart races and be able to be living a professional career out of it. I know it makes my family proud. I know it makes myself proud to the work I've been putting on since the young age. I've skipped many, let's say, parties with friends or travel plans that I had at the younger ages. For sure I had to skip a lot of those to be able to pursue my dreams. But that's what made me go to the next level. And I think today I have a better sense on how to balance that professional life and my personal life in a better way. For sure, that came with time and experience, because when I look back to the times that I was in probably Formula 2, Formula 1, I didn't have that much balance between my professional life and personal life. It's also a fine line, right? Each one has a different way of approaching, because when you start to criticize yourself too much as well, or being hard on your judgment too far out, that can take you're not making any good for yourself. In fact, it takes days to recover from that. Let's say I made a mistake in a race. Today, I'd probably be bad for one day, and just sink it in and learn, what did I do? What could I have done better? I'll take the opinion from my teams, and that's it. We move on. It's time to work on that again. It's consistency, right? And that came with experience and knowing how to switch focus, having the mindset of the next challenge. And that's for the good and the bad. Like I said, I won a race now. We just won Sebring. It's great. We have this great feeling all across the team, within the team, our sponsors, our family, our friends. We enjoyed that for a couple of days, and that's it. The cycle is closed. We go to the next one.
In one area, when you're growing up, it's that independence of getting your first car. And Tim Cindric told us when he was on the show that his very first vehicle was he hated it. It was a 1971 Cadillac Eldorado. Your teammate, Nick Tandy, he had a Mini because that's what he was racing at the time. So when you got your first set of car keys and you were going mobile, what was your first car?
It was a Citroën C4 when I lived in the UK. Nothing amused me in that car, for sure. It was just taking me from point A to point B. And that's what I had in the time. That's what I had when I was driving in British F3 driving the UK roads. But that was it. That was, you will never forget, because that was the first car I ever drove.
Oh, that's fantastic. So he's a chef. He plays massive guitar. You throw in the big ass fish that we were talking about that you showed me pictures of, which was huge. And then along the way, you've won some pretty epic races and cool trophies to have in your trophy case, and especially knocking off the big one at Sebring, the Rolex to start the year. Wishing you much success as the season continues on and the street fight takes over at Long Beach. So Felipe, thanks for jumping on with us from all the way down in Brazil.
Thanks, Matt. Again, it's been a pleasure. It's been great to share some of those stories, and I look forward to the next ones. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good one.
Now, each stop on the IMSA WeatherTech schedule is special. Each venue has its own culture, passionate fans. But when you look at Sebring, I don't think there's any bigger fan of racing on the airstrip than Jeffrey Stillwell. Now, his dad, back in 1943, as an 18-year-old, was stationed at the old Hendricks Field. And Jeff, every year when you go back to a race at Sebring, is it a special connection for you back to your father since we lost him just over a decade ago?
Yeah, it really is, Matt. Especially to look at the flagpole and realize that's still the same flagpole from back in the day. That was the flagpole my dad saluted, you know. And like I said on your interview in the Officers Club, to see those runners in the concrete where the hangar doors used to be, and I think my old man used to roll hangar doors back and forth in those runners. It's like it's almost like being in his presence again to some degree, you know.
When you look at what IMSA and the France family have done, the last original building they restored and made it an officers club, a hospitality area where people can go and start talking about the history of the place. And it leads one thing to another, just making Sebring that much more special. Inside, a picture of your father. So that must have been cool, walking in there for the first time and seeing your dad up on the wall.
Yeah, that, Wayne Estes, the president, and I go all the way back more than a dozen years to his days at Bristol. And we've just been like brothers ever since. I always tell everybody there's nothing he wouldn't do for me and there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. And that's why we get along. We just never do anything for each other, you know. But when I stumbled across that picture, Wayne asked for a copy of it. I said, sure. So I sent it down to him. And I did not expect to see it in the Officers Club, but that was pretty neat to see it there anyway.
So many people have a passion for racing and they collect different things, whether it's hats, die cast, but I don't know anyone who has built a one-of-a-kind, massive slot car track, which is an exact copy of Sebring, except for Jeffrey Stillwell. How did you come up with the idea for the slot car track? Because I know when I was a kid, I had the old Penske Sears AFX racing track. My buddy Eric Rang, who's the transport driver for Action Express, drives the hauler. He and I are childhood friends, and we had our own slot cars. We'd get together and race, but our track, embarrassingly small compared to what you have built. How'd you come up with this idea?
Well, first off, I have to defer here to a little side shot here of my buddy Matt. He probably has that very Penske race set in his collection.
Hi.
So we're going to have to see if we can find some way of getting a picture of it off to you. But actually, this HO scale Sebring track replaces a 1/32 scale Watkins Glen that preceded it and has now been sold to an old buddy of mine up in Cincinnati, Ohio. But knowing Wayne and knowing how much he'd get a kick out of this thing, that's really what drove it. The story behind the story, though, kind of defers to what you talked about earlier in our interview at the Officers Club about how my mom's turning 100 years old. And Mom, at 99 years old now, anybody who's ever seen somebody get to that age knows that there's some slipping, there's some loss of memory, there's some short-term memory issues. She still knows me and she's happy where she is, so I'm happy for that. But this track, building this track has been my therapy. It's been my escape. It's just nice to just lock everything out, go down and get lost in my own little world that is Sebring. and build this in my basement, which happens to be the basement of the house built by the guy who led the charge on Omaha Beach when we stormed Normandy on D-Day. So
Incredible.
there's a lot deeper story than even we had the time to get into at Sebring.
When you look at building the facility, and I think back to all the different racetracks that have been built over the past, 75, 80 years, and you throw out names like Charles Moneypenny and just different people designing it. So when you're looking at, because your nickname's Homer, when you're looking at your facility, the promoter, how much, feet do you have? What's the parameters? What are we looking at? Because this thing is incredible.
Well, it's 22 foot by 17 foot. And if you put a tape measure down in the slot and ran it around the track, it's 102 running feet. To be proportionally correct, it would have to be 318 feet. But I can still get an awful lot of stuff in a very little space here. So that's what I've done, is I try to look for the detail. And I told Wayne when we were down there at Sebring just this last weekend, I said, I'm so disappointed in my track. He says, why? I said, because I haven't got nearly enough stuff on it. So as we speak, yes, you may remember Big Mike's party tent. I didn't have that on there. I'm going to have to add that. And I got to know Ryan over at Turn 4 and the guys at Turn 10, and even shook hands with the fish tank guys. And now I'm starting to see other buses that I'm having to go out and find to print, and get into them even more detail. So, yeah, it'll be a lot more involved and comprehensive by this time next year. And hopefully, without putting you out or anything like this, I'll be able to send you a little video of it that you guys can use as filler if you need to. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. 108 running feet. Cars, I think their track record right now is 4.31 seconds, which is right at about 2,000 scale miles an hour. But yeah, just all it is a bunch of grown adults playing or screaming and hollering little cars,
Well, how do you make the pieces? I mean, even down to Pippo Durrani's out of the ballpark scene, you even got the track record, you've got the ambulance there. How do you make all your different pieces, because they're spectacular and accurate?
Well, thank God for the diecast collectible market, right? The IMSA has all the AMR teams. I was able to do that, but they did require, I had to disassemble them and put in the little LEDs, put them on flashers. And I don't know if I don't remember if the video showed it or not, but when we race, if anybody crashes and it's severe enough of a crash, I flip a switch on the track and all the emergency vehicles light up with flashing yellow or flashing red lights. You saw a little bit of that in Durrani, but that appears at all 17 corners. And I'm learning now there are places on the wall that I need to have. And under the bridge, they have caution lights. All these little details need to be added to it. So, yeah, thank God for Amazon and the diecast collectible market. It allows you to do a lot more detail. And a 3D printer doesn't hurt either.
What was the hardest part to make?
Without question, the tower. In fact, you only saw it, and I'm going to detach you here because I have to show you this. I'm working on the suite interiors right now.
Get out. So you're working on the interiors for the suites.
Right. And I still have the people that you can order on Amazon, right? All the little people to put in. And I have to go around and stand them up in the suites and then the exterior decks and all that other stuff. And that's a lot of fun because, about every 2 minutes you're saying to yourself, oh, Wayne's going to love this. Oh, Wayne's going to trash me about this. And it's just fun. He always gets a kick out of it because he passes it around the whole staff over there when anything changes,
Well, I know I've got some friends and they would ask, I didn't see any pit reporters on your pit lane calling stops. Maybe that should be something added for the next workload that you're going to do to the old facility.
That will be done. That will be added to my list. I do have what is supposed to be on, let's see if I can show you this well enough, on at the Victory Circle. That's actually supposed to be Wayne standing back here
And Wayne,
Providing
that's
everybody
just
with-
the track president.
Yes. Providing everybody with the orange juice and the trophies and whatever that he usually his obligations include him to do, But yeah, we need to get pit reporters. So that'll go on the short list for sure.
When people come in, they see your track for the first time. Is there one particular piece that is always the favorite? Or is it just pretty much, it runs the gamut of everything is so cool?
It's hard to say because that's just one of 7 tracks in the house.
7 tracks?
7, yes, because we have a 24 scale drag strip. And of course, Sebring is over here. We also have the short track. And we also have the dirt track. And I apologize, some of these are not upkept because I've been spending so much time on Sebring. And new in the process, we have a tri-oval.
See, I could see we could go from the Rolex 24 at Daytona to the Sebring 12 hours hanging at Homer's.
Oh, absolutely. You guys are always welcome here. This is a track that I originally thought was going to be my Sebring. And you can probably see the similarities in the tower.
Incredible workmanship.
And then, of course, an HO drag strip as well. So yeah, I just tell people it's just a hobby gone horribly awry.
Well, you're the track owner, multi-tracker. I mean, you're like the Roger Penske, the Jim France of American racing in the slot car world. So you're a promoter as well. Do you have a big race coming up at the old Sebring?
I do. And thank you for asking. We've got, it won't be the Mobile 1 12 Hours of Sebring. It will be the Homer 1 12 Minutes of Sebring. And we're going to have a capacity of 24 people. They're going to come so far, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Florida, Kansas, all my old buddies that I used to race with before I had to go out and make a living. And Wayne is going to come up and be Grand Marshal. And he's going to have goodie bags for everybody, hats or programs or something. So that'll be August 2nd. And Stillwell Racing does have a Facebook page, Stillwell Racing Enterprises. So if anybody wants to go out and look up and see more pictures or even the video of Pippo Durrani's crash piggybacked onto the footage from my basement, they're certainly welcome to do that.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'll add one more thing. When you talk about your late father, Jack, and your mom, Jackie, who mid-July, she's going to hit the century mark 100, which is such a great run. But you told me that they raced in Las Vegas, both of them in a sports car race?
Well, actually, they raced in Minneapolis. One of the cars Dad raced is in Harrah's in Vegas. Dad raced a 1932 Bugatti, and Mom raced a 1938 Jaguar SS100 that had the body kit on it, the rounded body. They're all typically kind of square corners back in the design. But the Italian designer, apparently, from what I can remember, made this body kit for it, and he had that on that. Dad finished 4th, and Mom finished 3rd in the old parking lot that you now know today as Mall of America. So, but yeah, the Jag SS100 is now out in Harrah's. He sold it, and that's where it wound up. It wound up at Harrah's out in Vegas. Or maybe Reno, forgive my lack of memory.
Well, one thing I will say, it certainly speaks passion, does carry over from generation to generation. Jeffrey Stillwell, thanks for showing us your fleet of racetracks, but especially that special iconic Sebring.
Anytime.
All right, thanks, my friend. Good luck with the
We'll
promoting the Homer 120.
That's great.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, many fans recognize and enjoy Jonathan Grace's excellent social media content work, whether working with Marshall Pruitt over at racer.com or various online publications, John DeGee's Sports Car 365 as well. And in 2025, adding a little bit more to his big media platform, he's the newest member of the IMSA social media content team. And we welcome Jonathan to the show. Saw you down at Sebring. Great weekend. but so many excellent storylines that have come out of the 12 hours.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be able to contribute to the Endurance Hour podcast. It's been super fun to watch. And yeah, oh my gosh, Sebring was so much fun top to bottom. I don't have to tell you, it's one of the best tracks in North America. And it's always fun to go to IMSA's second round because it's always one of the biggest one too.
So looking at the outcome, Penske, once again, carbon copy of Daytona, created some great, exciting moments for the fans throughout the 12 hours, taking home, now it's back-to-back, and really in modern-day GTP era, it's the first back-to-back endurance winners. So what was your take of where they are picking up where they left off on 2024?
It's one of those things that's equally impressive and not surprising, given the trajectory of that team. You look from its first year until last year and the momentum and growth. Both of the 6 and the 7 car look so strong and competitive. I think if anyone's got a target on their back this season, it's going to be them. But, at the same time, you mentioned it, first back-to-back winners. That's really hard to do in the GTP class. The way the rules and the regulations are formulated, these cars race really close, and it kind of levels the playing field for everybody with BOP and what have you, and the regulations. It's not easy to win back-to-back, so it's a really impressive thing.
So I saw Lawrence Vanthor in the media center following the race, and all 3 drivers were into their media availability. And we were joking around just about it was back-to-back. And I said, this is going to make great content for your podcast with your brother, because he helped once again by winning the pole, which then you guys counterback by winning the race. He goes, oh, yes, I cannot wait. I've got my lines all ready to bust on him. But looking at the non-Penske headlines, coming out of Sebring, what do you think would be the top 2 or 3?
Well, I think certainly the loudest one and maybe most visually impressive would be the Valkyrie. Top 10 finish on its debut here in IMSA and just its second race globally, I think is really, really impressive. And it was the first race for this U.S.-based crew, too. Post-race, we always go into victory lane and try to find drivers to interview. And Ian James could not stop smiling, and I think he had a lot of reason to. They had such a clean race. I think they had a valve for a vent or something coming into the cockpit that they changed, and other than that, it was really clean. And they ended up putting that nose cone back on the car too, the original one. You couldn't have really asked for a better debut. I think just looking at the fan response to the car, seeing it roll through the paddock, hearing it on track, everybody in Green Park was cheering it on. I know we were cheering it on. I'm sure you could attest when you were in the media center, you could hear it on any straightaway on the track. You could hear it from down inside our little bunker. But yeah, I think that's a big one. To finish 9th on your first try is pretty darn good.
When you look at that entire program, and I mentioned this to Ian out on pit lane during the race, that I don't know of more people who are more excited. Usually during the autograph session, you can see the line over at Rexy, or you can see the line where Jordan Taylor is. And I said, Ian, you had more people excited and taking pictures with an engine. When you rolled out the engine just for the fans to see that massive 12 cylinders. And it's things like that just have created more excitement around that entire program.
Absolutely. It's something cool and it's something different. Any racing fan will tell you weight and saving weight is so precious. And so to show up with a humongous screaming V12 is pretty bold. And I think the fans love it. It sounds great. The car looks great. It's something we haven't seen before. It's our first car in IMSA that's built to the LMH regulations. They're bringing a lot of new and different things to the table. And I think looking at the car too, design-wise, aerodynamics-wise, it's pretty radical all around.
When you talk to different drivers, they win championships, and they'll always say the hardest thing to try to pull off a back-to-back is to maintain the focus, the momentum, and carry that into the next season, because now you've got the target on your back. And you've had a lot of other things that have taken place. You might have lost some people to other teams that were hired away. When you look at the champions from 2024 going into 25, you mentioned earlier, Penske, they've not missed a beat. And then you look at Rexy and AO Racing. Once again, they were there and they scored the 12, and then throw in Windward. It just seems like nobody has really misstepped. And although it's only 2 races in, and anything can and usually does happen, but it seems like they're setting the tone, the narrative themselves versus letting others.
I completely agree. I mean, it's hard to pick a point to start with all the classes, but yeah, with Porsche Penske, it's a pretty perfect start to the year. I'm really curious for Long Beach though, because it's one of our shortest races on the calendar. We know that the 963 platform is really strong in those kind of colder evening temperatures. Long Beach, it's in sunny California. It's going to be warm. It's going to be in the middle of the day. You know, what other cars maybe can contend and, throw something different in the mix in the 100 minutes there. And, Windward, I think, is going to have a lot of competitive cars chasing it. GTD is going to take center stage in Long Beach, but a pretty perfect start for the year, going back to back for them in 25, just like they did in 2024. And for them at the end, it was enough to make a difference last season. So I think they're trying to do the same thing again here.
Going into Sebring, everyone, they're focused on different parts of 2025. And IMSA, once again, shaking things up by announcing the 2026 schedule, which is fantastic because it gives everyone an opportunity to plan ahead their spring breaks or their family vacations. Hey, in August, we know where we can go. This is the date of that weekend. Let's book our flights. And the biggest buzz that I heard about next season was everybody were like, all right, Road America, let's highlight that. We're for sure going to go to the endurance race. They love the fact that endurance racing was going to be back up at Elkhart Lake. Is that the same type of a buzz that you picked up in the paddock?
Oh, 100%. I do the Double Stint podcast with John DeGeese every week, and it's become kind of a running joke because 3 or 4 times a year, someone will write in a question, when are we going to get an endurance race at Road America? Like clockwork. And I think it's pretty cool of IMSA to mix up that format in that way. Familiar venues for next year, which is great. I know you broke down the calendar with John Doonan last time out on the podcast, but I think everybody, journalists, drivers, fans, everyone's excited for 6 hours because we're not getting 4 hours, we're getting a full 6, and it's going to be really cool. I'm curious to see the timing of that race. Are we going to go into the night? Is it going to be an all-day affair? Either way, it's going to be a good one.
Yep, no matter when they drop the green flag, it's a win-win for everyone because the paddock, they were, celebrating the fans. They're celebrating on all the message boards and everything else. So when you look at your role on the media side, what all do you do? Because you don't just do auto racing and you fill your gaps between the race event weekends, besides working with Marshall and John, which we joked earlier. To me, Marshall Pruitt is a lot like when you see those cartoons of Santa Claus after Christmas. He's got the big Hawaiian shirt on, he's on vacation. And that's sort of, the charisma that Marshall has in the paddock, just a passionate guy, fun-loving guy. And then you've got John DeGeese, and great guy as well, but he's so laser focused. The radar's up. He's chasing down news. He's a news dog. And so you're working with some great people, but what was your first mentor, so to speak? Mine was, Jerry Punch on the NASCAR side, Jack Arute. For you, who would that be?
That's a good question. I think, a broadcaster we know and love, Ryan Marine, has really taken me under his wing, and I definitely would not be in the position I am without him. I was introduced to him by someone else in the racing paddock, Dustin Hesseltine. He does a lot of the legal work behind the scenes. But yeah, Ryan has been such a good guy, and his broadcast CV is pretty prolific, but he did not have to help me for any reason. He's just one of the nicest guys in the world, but he's shown me a lot and kind of taken me under his wing. John DeGeese too, honestly, because I've been working with him for a couple years now, and broadcast is kind of my main focus, but he's helped and mentored me a ton on the hard news side, the writing side. I admire so much the way he's able to put out the amount of content and media and stories he does. And then Marshall, I dare you to find a more charismatic guy in the paddock. I think he just attracts positive energy everywhere you look. Fans are excited to see him and be around him, and it's been really fun to start to work with him more and see how he works and his process. I feel really lucky. There's a lot of really good quality people in the paddock, and I feel lucky to have gotten to work with a lot of them.
Now, see, for me, auto racing has always been, my first love from the time I was a little kid. My first sports car race was at MIS. And the only reason why I know that was my first race of any kind or at least my first memory, because I kept saying, why are they going the wrong way? Because they were actually going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. But that stuck in my mind. And so it's always been my passion. And for you, for me, it's the stories that go along with it. But for you, what's the one part of your job that just gives you the most satisfaction?
I love the feeling when it doesn't matter what time of day it is, whether it's late at night or early in the morning, when you first get to a racetrack. And if you're lucky and you time it right and there's something going, they're doing media laps or something on that Thursday. I love that feeling of just driving through the gates and arriving at a track, even if there's nothing happening. It's just cool. We're all big racing nerds at the end of the day. And I always joke that our job is kind of selfish because we're just trying to make everyone else as excited about racing as we are. But yeah, for me, that and I always try to walk on the grid before an IMSA race. It's just kind of a special moment. The fans are out, you can see the cars, even if it's 5 minutes. It's just a nice reminder to myself to go, still be a fan whenever I can. But I think little things like that you look forward to in a weekend, I think make it special.
Now, with everything you've got on your plate, and there's all great teams that you're involved in, and that's what I love most about my job is the opportunity to share different story ideas with my teammates and just the fun of being a part of a team, and you're trying to tell a great narrative about an IMSA WeatherTech race or Michelin Pilot race, you name it, and to have that transfer over, because I feel like with the growth that IMSA has seen, like last year, every race weekend, it was like, all right, we're up 11% in the crowd. Amazing. Hey, we go on to the next race, double digit as well. And there's so many what I like to call free agent fans. I met two guys at the airport leaving Sebring. They'd been to, several different other types of series. They said, you know what, we want to go check out IMSA. And they just basically threw a dart in the dark and picked Sebring. They knew the weather probably would be the best. They'd get some sunshine. And they said that they walked every inch of the airport. They were so taken in. And then on top of that, as far as the cost, it was like 1/7 of going to the Montreal F1 race or going down to Miami. They're like, you know what, we're going to be back. Where should we go next? So we started going through the calendar. But when you look at those and having a fresh piece of paper and the stories that I love to tell about the drivers, whether it's Nick Tandy helmet painting, you can go on down the list, Colin Brown with his vintage VW that he restored with his dad. But I like doing stories like that make a connection so that somebody goes, you know what, that's the guy that I really want to pull for. I love his family life. I love what he's into, his hobbies, and I want to go have a beer with that guy. And so for you, what portion of your job do you love the most when you go, you know what, that was a great story or a great article, or a great stand-up talking about something about IMSA WeatherTech racing?
Oh, that's a good one. Gosh, I mean, on the driver's side, it's always, I always enjoy talking to drivers post-race. There's a lot of raw emotion. They've either just won a race or they've been really close to winning or they were hit and spun out, what have you. I think drivers tend to be really honest and open in those moments, and that's really rewarding, and I really like that. It's kind of this mad dash. As soon as the checkered flag waves, you'll see all of us scatter in the media center. We'll go to victory lane and down the paddock to try to search people out. But I think on the fan side, John Doonan and Marshall Pruitt and the Coforce team, who do our great IMSA videos, had a great idea to go walk around in Green Park and talk to some of the fans and the campers. And that was, I think, for me, one of the most rewarding parts of the Sebring weekend is just to talk to the people who, take time off work, who go and set up their campers and leave them in an empty, dirt lot for 2 weeks to get a spot to camp in Green Park. And just to see that people were so excited about our sport to go and do that and make that commitment. That was really cool. But I met a couple other people just walking around the paddock who, it was their first time at Sebring or their first time at an IMSA race, kind of like you were saying, and they were so excited. And I love that too. Just, people realizing what a cool product it is as a fan to go to an IMSA race. I mean, I feel incredibly lucky to be able to work in this sport. But to be a fan would be pretty darn cool right now too.
when you walk through the paddock, especially Saturday when it's the typical autograph session time, and you see all these kids and they've got, their favorite driver, their favorite car, whether it's, their favorite dinosaur, you name it. But when you see the excitement in their eyes, and that takes me back to when I remember, seeing sports cars or stock cars or Indy cars when I was a little kid. And that's what really, connected me. For you, what connected you to auto racing? What was your first race?
Oh, my first race actually was a 2014 Red Bull GRC event at the Port of Los Angeles. I was born and raised out in LA. And my mom got an email, I think, through the Peterson Auto Museum out there. And she was like, hey, I know you like cars and racing. Would you and your sister want to go to this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So she took us down there, and that was really cool. But I remember as a kid, my grandpa, he had a place up just outside of the Mojave Desert, and he had this little John Deere tractor. And there's pictures of me and him when I was, this tall. And he's got me up on the tractor driving around. And that was my favorite part of going up there, is we just do laps around his little property up there. And I think that's probably what got me hooked on cars to begin with. And then I ended up getting to go to my first IndyCar race with him, later on in life, back when I was in college, which was pretty special. But I think 2014, going to that rally event. I haven't been back to one. A rally event of any kind since, but that's where it all started, going to races in person, at least.
So from that moment, did you say to your mom, look, this is it for me. This is going to be my arena. How did you zero in on, being a broadcaster?
It's kind of a funny story. It was completely by accident, and I kind of lied my way into it a little bit. I went into college thinking I was going to do sports psychology or kinesiology. I was kind of hell bent on that. And for background, my dad's an audio guy, and so he's, I kind of grew up around audio and post production and have some skills and knowledge there. But anyway, so they were hiring in the broadcast department. I had gotten a work study allocation. I was like, all right, well, this will get me around the athletes, and it'll help me with my psych classes and maybe some of my pre-med stuff. And they said, hey, I know this isn't necessarily the job you signed up for, but we're down a broadcaster. Do you watch any soccer? And I lied and went, yeah, I'm a huge soccer fan. I'll do it. No problem. And I made my college roommate at the time, Alan, stay up the whole night with me and teach me how soccer worked. And I had a little written cheat sheet from him. The boots are called cleats. It's called the pitched, what have you. And I faked my way through it and had such a good time. And they didn't fire me. I don't know if they were just desperate or what, but I fell in love with being able to try to tell stories on, be behind the camera and on the mic. And from there, I switched my major and was like, all right, I'm going to go kind of head on into the broadcast thing. And then, to marry it with the racing stuff has been kind of the dream.
When you look at the media front, and it doesn't matter which racing discipline, it seems like you're in the club and people want to, reach down and help, the next young person coming in, because they know what it's like and how tough it is to find a spot and break into the sport and do, whatever various media it is. And so you've always got people that they remember what it was like when they started out and they want to give back. So when you made that pivot toward auto racing, who helped you through the door? Who helped, introduce you to different people?
I think it really all started with, like I said, Dustin Hesseltine introduced me to Ryan Marine, and then Ryan, just because he's the nicest guy in the world, kind of started pointing me in the right direction. He ended up helping me get an audition with IMS Productions on that side, which has led to some work in American open wheel racing, which has been really fun. But he also introduced me then to John DeGeese, and they were looking to have a new podcast host at the time, because Ryan was getting busy with some other commitments. And John DeGeese took a risk on me and a chance, and has helped me a ton. And so I owe him a ton of credit as well, because he's really taken me under his wing and taught me a lot too. And then since I've been working on the video side, Marshall has been fantastic. He is such a wealth of knowledge. He's a great guy to be around. He's just so natural on camera, and on top of that, he's an encyclopedia of knowledge. But really, I think it's the same as a fan as it is in the media center. If you have a question, if you need help, go up to someone, even if it's someone you've read their articles for a long time. All the time we find ourselves asking, "Hey, what was this stat? Is this his first pole or his 10th pole or whatever?" And people are shouting out answers and helping each other. And I love that. We may all be competing to get stories out first and what have you, but it's cool. We're all basically playing on the same team. We're all trying to grow the sport, and it's neat to kind of see that camaraderie come together. Whether it's people that have been in the sport for a long time, or some of the newer folks in the paddock like myself. Everyone's fighting on the same team, and that's really fun.
The other thing I love too, like you talk about the media center culture, and we're all in there. We all travel together in a sense that we spend more time together at a racetrack Thursday to Sunday or Wednesday to Saturday than most people spend with their families. And so you learn about what's going on in somebody's life, and you build a lot of friendships. And on top of that, then hey, let's go out to dinner. But then it's the storytelling. And what I love is when you have some guys and ladies that have been around for a long time, and they're part of another era, and you just want to go up and go, "Hey, tell me about Mark Donohue. What was he like at Watkins Glen in the 9/17/30? Or it's, tell me about so-and-so. I had dinner with Derek Bell one time, and we were talking about that he had tea with Jimmy Clark on that tragic weekend.
Oh, wow.
And he gave me the whole insight about the challenges that they were dealing with the car and just what Jim was like. And those are the kind of things that I try to soak up so that you can, be a custodian of history in a way, of pass those stories on to the next younger generation, just so that history doesn't fade away. So is there one person that you've interviewed that's been at this juncture of your career where you're like, man, I wish I could have an extra 20 minutes, sort of like a Groundhog Day type moment with Bill Murray? You'd love to go back and do that interview one more time.
Oh, for sure. I got to talk to Shane Van Gisbergen at Daytona, which was really cool. Gotten to interview Scott Dixon a few times, which has been amazing. I mean, I've had posters of Scott and his cars on my wall as a kid. It's kind of surreal to go and get to talk to him for work. I'm trying to think who else. Mike Rockenfeller. We did a video with him and Sebastian Priaulx in Daytona, and that was just so beyond cool. Sebastian Bourdais, same thing. Grew up watching him win championships and race all over the world, and in sports car racing too. So it's kind of weird getting to go and have to interview and ask questions to people who I grew up watching as a fan, or had posters of on my wall as a kid or in college. But that's pretty cool. It's hard to pick one. Anytime you see Andretti at the track, Mario, he's always around. Long Beach, I think it's my home race. It was the first place I met him. That was kind of a cool one too, because I just wanted to sit there and pick his brain and ask him stories all day, because that guy is an incredible storyteller and an amazing ambassador for the sport. Yeah, I know I gave you about 10 answers there, but there's so many legends in the paddock. It's kind of hard to pick sometimes.
You talked about Mike Rockenfeller, and he and I got into a great conversation going back to your grandfather's John Deere tractor. We got into a conversation about our families and their heritage, which there was farming involved, and we both still have a special tractor. He's got a mid-50s John Deere, which they restored, and I still have a 1949 Ferguson TO20 that my great-grandfather bought brand new. And when my daughter was 11, I've got pictures of her on it. So you look at the generations that have all sat in that seat, and it just goes back to, something that's cool to know. It doesn't matter, what discipline or area it is. It just creates a story, which is why we love what we do in telling stories. So let me ask you this as we close out our time together here. Nick Tandy. He talked about his first car was a Mini because that's what he raced at the time. John Doonan had a Mazda 626. catalytic converter was cut off, so you could hear that about 2 miles away. Tim Cindric had a 1971 Eldorado Cadillac, which he hated.
Wow.
But that was his first set of wheels. And we just already heard from Felipe Nasr. So what was Jonathan Grace's first automobile when he hit the big age of 16?
Technically, it was my grandpa's old 1998 Honda CRX, although it didn't really run. So it kind of sat in the driveway. I think I got it when I was about 15 because he was like, this thing is out. And you know, he couldn't really drive at that point anyway, but he gave it to me. I think, you know, me and a couple buddies went down to AutoZone, tried to put some fluids in it. We got it to turn over, sold it for, I don't know, $1,000. And for my 16th birthday, my parents woke me up, and there was a 2016 Toyota Camry out in the driveway, which was very nice of them. My sister and I split it because she was just a year behind me. So Carlos the Camry was my first real set of wheels that actually I could drive down the street in. Kind of a tough act to follow. There's been some cool first cars, but I loved that thing. It was great. You know, there's nothing like being a kid in high school and all of a sudden you've got all the freedom in the world with a car. And you know, where I went to high school was about a 45-minute drive into downtown LA, which I don't know who the heck let us go drive on our own in downtown LA traffic in high school. But yeah, I think that's probably where I fell in love with driving too. Is I just got to spend a lot of time in that little Camry.
So second most important question, Carlos the Camry. Now, did you get first dibs because you were sharing the car with your sister? So on the weekend, all right, I've got Saturday night already checked off. That's mine. You know, you can have Sunday afternoon. How did you work out the sharing?
Well, I like to drive, so I offered if she had a place to go. I didn't mind chauffeuring her around until she got her license, but we would go back and forth. You know, there's always a competitive sibling rivalry. We're close in age, so my sister Emma's always been one of my best friends, which has been cool. But we'd go back and forth about who got the keys for the weekend, and try to split that. But it's part of the fun.
It certainly is. I'll never forget. My daughter's 14. She turns 15 next month. She's already in driver's ed. She's already got mapped out what she's hoping she gets for her set of wheels because it's definitely that freedom. So, well, Jonathan Grace, man, loved that you stopped by and we had some time to catch up and looking ahead to the next big event, Long Beach, your home track.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This has been a blast. I'll see you on the streets of Long Beach.
Sounds great, my friend. And we'll definitely have you back soon. Love all your take on everything, and we'll try to find out even more about Carlos the Camry. Jonathan, thanks for stopping by, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
Thanks to Felipe Nasr, Jeffrey Stillwell, and Jonathan Grace for stopping by on another edition of the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. Now, be sure to check out Season 3 of Win the Weekend, presented by Michelin, which began at Daytona and continues into Episode 2 after Sebring, which airs on April 2nd. Michelin Pilot Challenge will be featured live on YouTube, commercial-free, courtesy of Michelin. The Michelin Pilot Series will be free in the U.S. and globally commercial-free for the 2025 season, thanks to our friends at Michelin. Check out additional IMSA content this week in Sportscars with Marshall Pruitt and Graham Goodwin, Double Stint Podcast with John DeGeese, and our guest today, Jonathan Grace, and Hindy's Midweek Motorsports Podcast. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app or IMSA's YouTube channel. Well, thanks for stopping by, and please be sure and leave your comments what you'd love to see more of on the next edition of the IMSA Endurance Hour podcast.